Welcome to another edition of the Athletics Office. He's Coach RC. I'm your co-host, Brandon Weaver, and parents. I've got a hot take for some parents today and coaches on the youth sports side and secondary sports side. Hopefully we'll have a better understanding of this, but parents, do not meet with a school coach and say, I have coached a blank number of years, however long that's been, but all of that is in a youth sports environment. It's just completely different. Right?
Come on.
And so we want to dive into that today to see what is the difference between those youth sports and secondary sports. Both are vital.
Yeah.
Both really help the development of young people, right, boys and girls. And so we're going to continue our series today on what coaches wish they could tell parents and kind of talk about that. So let's jump right in and talk about one of the big differences between youth sports and secondary sports is the eligibility, the academics, the discipline. So talk about your experience. First of all, talk about the experiences that you've had in both youth sports environments and secondary sports environments, and then we can jump into that topic.
All right, so I've coached travel baseball for high school age kids, and I did that for one summer. It was a nice summer. It was a lot more time, like going back to time away from family.
Yeah.
It was a lot of time away from the family. We played 6 weekends out of the summer, Thursday through Sunday. I was lucky to have a pretty talented team during the summer, so we usually made it to Sunday.
So you look like a good coach.
I did. I looked like a really good coach. So I've done that, and that was a lot of time away, and I kind of stepped away from it after a year, and I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this too much longer. Now, I've done it here and there sparingly throughout, one weekend maybe during the summer where I'm kind of free, or I'll bring the family with me to do it. And that's not bad either. And then I've coached Little League softball, y'all. Like, I'm telling you, that if you are a Little League softball coach,
Hearts go out to you.
Yes, it does, because it is a whole different ball game.
Yep.
Managing emotions and striking out or getting hit by a pitch or missing a fly ball, you know, how they recover from that. So I've done that. I did that for a few years coaching my daughter. I may even get ready to coach my youngest daughter in it because she wants to play. I don't know yet. I don't know. And then also coaching our basketball. Our daughters in basketball, which listen, y'all, I don't really do a lot of the coaching. I'm more of like the sit on the end of the bench, make sure everybody's got their water, and Coach Weaver's got his clipboard. Hey, quick story. Here we go. Quick story. First game out, last year, I think. I'm the clipboard guy, right? So
I know your role.
I know my role. I'm the clipboard guy. We get to the game. This team's running, I think they're running a zone or something like that against us, and they're pressing us. Coach Weaver calls timeout. He's looking for the clipboard. I'm the clipboard guy. We don't have one. So he actually starts trying to draw this out on the court for the girls, and they're like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
But all right, that's
he was not fired. We had a conversation after the game to set expectations.
We did. So I'm going to hop into the eligibility piece of it. That's just kind of my background with coaching youth sports. But eligibility in secondary sports is almost the end-all, be-all.
So we're academics first, right?
Yes, we're academics first. So if you have an athlete that's not, passing his classes or has too many absences, that kid can't play. He's going to be ineligible, or she's going to be ineligible. Then you look at eligibility as far as you have a kid that transfers in. That's another
may have to
piece.
sit.
He may have to sit, or she may have to sit a year. So those are kind of the pieces there. Then let's talk about discipline a little bit. If a kid gets in trouble in class, that coach is usually the first person that teacher reaches out to. I actually had that happen yesterday. A teacher sent me an email like, hey, I'm having an issue with this student in class. During notes time, they want to be goofy. Mm-hmm. And so as a coach in secondary sports, you have to handle that. And teachers come to you because you can make things happen a little bit quicker sometimes.
We have an influence over them that sometimes teachers don't.
Yes. So in youth sports, that is
completely separate.
All that stuff is not even
Yeah.
part of the picture. So that's kind of my experience with it all.
Yeah. So my experience in youth sports coaching is obviously we run camps for youth, which is a little bit different than coaching a team in a league. I've coached my now 8th grade son, now my 5th grade daughter, and now my 3rd grade daughter, all in youth sports kind of growing up, and in youth basketball specifically. And then, of course, I've been a parent of, they've played soccer, they've played volleyball, they've played football. So I've seen it kind of from the parent side and all those. So to talk about the eligibility, academics, and discipline, so we both value, and I think a lot of school coaches value, the opportunity to use the platform of leadership given to our athletes to help enhance the entire school community. So we want to put a premium on, hey, if you're going to be a part of the basketball program or the baseball program or any sports, we expect you to be leaders in your school. We specifically talk about, we want you to be a help to your teachers.
Yeah.
If I were to go to your teachers and ask, hey, how is, so-and-so doing? How's Johnny doing or whatever? They're giving us the feedback of, man, he's one of my best leaders. He not only takes care of himself, he's responsible in class, but he, helps with the discussion. He's not a clown. He's not, because we all grew up with the sports guys and, they want to be the clowns in class and,
Right.
and those type of things. But they have a huge influence on that. And when you can get your athletes to do that within a school, it just enhances the entire school community.
Yeah.
When your athletes are not doing that, it makes it difficult. It makes I wouldn't say a toxic school community, but there's some negativity there, and there's some, some stereotypes as far as, oh, well, you're the athlete, and
Right.
just that's how you act. But that's something that you have to take into account. And now how does that impact playing time, starting? And everybody's going to have their opinions. Oh, well, that kid did this in class, so we think that he shouldn't start. We think that he should, sit for a half or however many innings or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And you as a coach have to make that decision on, and then once you make that decision, everybody's going to point to that decision the next time somebody does something. Well, you did this with this kid. What'd you do with this kid? And so, that's definitely a difference. All right. So the next one, and I think this is one of the biggest differences, is the numbers that you're competing with. And so, when we're coaching youth sports teams, on my basketball team, the most we would have is 10. That way, we got enough playing time for everybody. I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, we'd love to, maybe join your 3rd grade team, your 5th grade team, or as my son was coming up, join that team. And you don't want to have 20 kids on a team because it's hard to play those kids.
Yeah.
Well, you take the example of what we're dealing with in our middle school program right now. We have 21 all in our 7th grade right now. We have 28 in our 8th grade right now, right? So then, okay, well, what do you do with that? Do you have a tryout and you cut kids at the 7th and 8th grade level? We have done that before. Plenty of schools do that. When I was a freshman basketball coach at a 6A school, we had 60-plus kids come out for 15 spots, right? And I had to,
Can't keep them all.
Yeah, I had to cut that down. Because then you get into, okay, if you keep them all, are they going to be frustrated throughout the year if they don't start, if they don't play, those type of things? Are their parents going to be frustrated because they're having to come to games and they're just sitting there and it's like, well, I'm not even going to be able to watch my kid play. Actually, a good friend of mine actually told me one time after the season, he was like, hey, man, I'm okay with you cutting my kid because we're having to go to all these games, and we know he's not going to play. I mean, he was great about it, but, so that's a tough thing to manage. And then in practice, if you have 28 kids, even if you had a full court, but definitely on a half court in practice, how many reps are they getting? Are you getting the ones prepared that are going to play in the game, but also spending time developing the basic skill level of those? Because the trickiest part about middle school is you don't know how they're going to grow and develop.
Right.
They all hit their growth spurts at different times. They all develop at different rates. And so we want to do that. So this year we chose to keep all of them. And, so we're trying to explain to parents how we're going to do that. And we're going to make mistakes. Okay, there is no perfect way to be able to do that, and so we're trying to walk through that right now. But in youth, a lot of times you can control your numbers, make sure that everybody gets playing time. In youth, you definitely don't want to have too many, and then everybody's paying to play, and then now they're not getting the playing time. It's like, well, why am I paying to be in this league if I'm not going to do that? And that's something that you don't necessarily see in school bowls. So talk about that in your experience.
Well, let me just start by prefacing your b-ball practice yesterday that I watched. Wow. And I walked in, I was like, dude, this is like organized chaos because it was like loud. You got guys that, mind you, they're in one gym,
Yeah.
right? One gym.
Seventh and eighth grade.
Seventh
About
and eighth
50
grade.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in one gym. And it is like dudes are moving around. There's coaching going on. There's like, it's just one of those things where it's like you look in and you're like, if you're not watching and you got blinders on like this, I know y'all can't see me, some of y'all, but you got blinders on and you just hear, you're like, oh my gosh, it is ruckus in there. But then you take the blinders off and you're actually looking, it's like, all right, they're actually like grinding. They're doing all these different drills and getting in and getting out. So kudos on the 28 and 21 combined out there. But yeah, talking about numbers a little bit, like when I coached travel baseball, we only had 15 guys on our roster, right? And for me, like in the back of my head, with being a secondary coach, I always kept track of how many at bats, because in the baseball world, that's what parents want to see, is like, how many at bats is my kid getting in this tournament? Like, oh, this kid got 5 more at bats than my kid got in this tournament. Like, one, yeah, if he's hitting lower in the lineup, he's gonna get more at bats, you know. But yeah, controlling numbers that way. I know in our baseball program, we'll probably have close to 30 middle school kids out. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th. So
for one team, really.
For one team,
Yeah.
really, yeah. Like, and the way that that'll kind of look is we're gonna keep everybody, right? Now the practice is gonna look a little different. Some kids are gonna get more reps than others, but just like you spoke to, like the development piece, you never know if a kid's going to be a late bloomer or not. So in my eyes, I don't want to necessarily say, hey, this kid's not going to play anymore in that area. But that's the biggest difference, is as a parent in youth sports for me with my kids, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pay to watch them play, right? And I hope that the numbers are small enough where they actually get that development piece, right? And I think it's important too for parents that have that mindset of like, hey, listen, I understand my kid's not Messi or Ronaldinho on the soccer field right now, but like they're getting touches on the ball, right? And that's the vital part that I think some parents are missing out on. They're like, hey, no, I want my kid I want them to play every single time. They're the best player at 6 years old on this team. They should be on the field every time. If you have a great coach, in my eyes, like that coach is going to be like, yeah, they don't have to be on the field every time. Let's put them with the group that's not as good and kind of help them teach how to do certain things on the field and things like that. But controlling numbers, that's a huge piece of the puzzle that I think is completely different in secondary and youth.
Now in football, you kind of want as many as you can get.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, both at the secondary level and the youth sports level. And I know our youth football teams, we're really blessed to have strong numbers in those. But then there's also, for each sport has different kind of opportunity and availability depending on the number of kids you can put out there, right?
Yeah.
Baseball, you can put 9. Basketball, you can put 5. Football, it's 11, but there's offense, there's defense, there's special teams,
Right.
there's different, special teams that you can put out there. And so you can get kids out there, but that's the other tough thing is, if you can only put 5 out there at a time, right? Or in volleyball, you can only put 6, but you've got these incredible numbers. It's like there's not enough time. And like in our middle school basketball games, it's 6-minute quarters. So there's not what does that opportunity look like, and then how do you sub for that differently than even you would sub at high school? And so that can be an issue there. So let's jump into, and again, I think this is a big one: practice times and the frequency of those practices, how long those practices are, and those type of things. So talk about your experience in that.
So with youth practice, when I coached softball, well, no, let's start with high school. When
Okay.
I coached high school guys, we practiced twice. And this is a travel ball team. We practiced twice before the season even started. It was like right after school ball season. One of those practices was like for me to get to know everybody's name.
Right.
And it was probably about an hour and a half. Then the other practice was them getting their like gear that the organization had ordered them, and we would hit for a little bit. Now, both of those practices, I didn't even have everybody show up. And then as you go through the summer, we didn't practice very much. We had kids from all over different parts of the state on our team. So trying to get them together to have an organized practice was not going to happen.
Right.
So like those 2 practices was hard enough trying to get everybody here from Elk City, Duncan, Tulsa area, like just trying to bring everybody in. So that was almost non-existent. Then with the youth level, with my daughter's softball team, we would practice twice a week. Sometimes one would be an hour, the other one would be 2 hours, kind of depending on weather, facilities that we had too, which we're going to get to later. But that practice was 2 times a week, and then we'd play a tournament on the weekend. Or early on in our career, we would practice once a week and play a league game during the week. And that was it. So the practice looks different there. And then in high school, being a high school coach or a secondary coach, we practice every single day. That's the expectation. Like if you don't practice every single day, you're going to have a parent that is probably like, what are you guys doing? Like, you don't practice every day. You only practice twice a week. Like that's not what my kid is here to do, you know? So the expectation level changes as well when you get to secondary, as far as like how many days you're practicing and things like that. And let me just state, parents, we appreciate you taking your kids to lessons and being able to do those things when they're younger, because that does help us when they get to middle school and high school, kind of having an understanding and a good framework of a good base to start. So that's what practice looks like in my scenarios of youth versus secondary. What about you?
Well, and I think one thing we need to understand is how much easier that makes it for us as secondary coaches. If I go to a tournament and I'm watching my son or daughter play for somebody else that's, coaching them in youth or AAU or whatever, I can't have the same expectations for the chemistry that's going to happen there versus the chemistry that's going to happen on my high school team, because I'm meeting with them 5 days a week.
Right.
I mean, we start practice in August and we don't play a game until December. Like, we have so much time to develop chemistry, to teach things, all those things. Whereas if my kid goes and plays in an AAU tournament, they may have practiced once, maybe twice.
Right.
So, again, there's a benefit, there's a huge benefit to being a secondary coach in that. So we practice every day a week. Once it's kind of, October 1st, we can practice 2 hours, or really however long we want. We usually practice about 2 hours. Whereas our 3rd and 5th grade girls teams are practicing 1 day a week on Sundays for 2 hours. And let's be honest, that 3rd grade group struggles to go 2 hours, right? It's like, I mean, we even had a young lady last year who we were like, all right, we ready for this 2-hour practice? She's like, no, like right from the get-go. And I was like, this is not going to be good. But, so that's the other thing is, how long can you practice kids that are that young? And, I think a lot of frustration, even as I've talked to other youth coaches in other sports, is, we're trying to get them to this super high level. And it's like, really, if you can just teach the basics. If by the time they're 6th grade, right, if you kind of got to have the long range planning and, okay, they're first graders now, right? Just teach like basic fundamentals. And, in basketball, they need to be running plays. They need like 1 out of bounds play. Like they don't need to be doing 4 different types of defenses and things like that. So, the practice times and the frequency just look completely different. And how long you have before your season. We're going to have our first youth basketball practice here in a couple of weeks. We'll have maybe 3 or 4 before our first game. Then after that, we'll have 1 per week for 2 hours for the rest of it. And the other thing is, you want them to have fun.
Right.
At the end of the day, I mean, in both youth and secondary, you want them to have fun. There's a little bit more seriousness to it once they get in high school and things like that, and they're more mature and they can take that. Making it be fun, having it be fun is a big part of the youth sports and everything. So let's go next into facilities. And again, this is something I think that we have a huge advantage of in the secondary space. So talk about what that's look like.
Yeah, so the facilities piece is one that, as a youth coach, I never was like, man, I got to go rent this facility. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. One, because I was lucky to be at places where we could just use our facilities for that, But on the basketball end, with our younger our girls, like, we actually have to rent a facility. We have to go to another facility. So I think that is a piece with the facilities usage that youth sports, it's harder in youth sports to do, because now you're having to rent out practice space. I know there's a dad that coaches a youth baseball team that sometimes when we can't get into our facilities on campus, like we'll go to another spot and they're there waiting to use a facility right after us.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like they're having to wrestle with, oh man, can I get my practice in? Can I go to this place? Or, hey, am I going to rent this field for $250? Now that's an added cost for parents that they're having to pay and things like that.
Plus weather.
Yeah. You know, so like that's something that youth sports is a struggle, you know, to kind of figure out. But then in secondary, I don't have to worry about that.
No.
I'm going to practice on the field, or if I'm not going to practice on the field, I'm going to go use the cages inside. If we have a scheduling conflict, right, where like basketball needs to use that student center gym, then we're just going to go somewhere and rent somewhere and go there. Like facilities isn't something that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Never have to worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, the number of questions that we get about, man, can we, you know, like basketball teams, okay? So at OCS, I bet there's at least 3 teams per grade on the boys' side, maybe 1 or 2 on the girls' side, maybe as many as 3. And so you multiply that by how many grades there are, and, you know, we get the question of, hey, can we use the OCS gym? Well, the OCS gym is used a ton for all of our, you know, middle school and high school and even other events. And so we just kind of have a policy that they can't use them. And so now you're trying to find all these gyms out in the community, you know, and then you're trying to work around, you know, what time are we going to practice? How long are we going to practice? What's accessible? What is the cost of that practice? And so, you know, it can be a lot of juggling for a youth sports coach to kind of figure that out. I mean, we don't, you know, youth sports coaches don't have their own facility many times. And again, that looks different in each sport, but as secondary coaches, one thing we're blessed with is just the facilities to be able to do the jobs that we need to do and we want to do. And I mean, there are some schools out there that have started programs and didn't have a facility, so they're having to go off-site and rent. However, for the most part, we're pretty blessed with that.
Well, and even equipment in those facilities, like we're lucky to have the machines, all the gadgets that we need at school, at the facilities at school. Like if you're a youth coach and you're going to DBAT for baseball, then you got to risk that machine breaking down, or worse, one of your kids getting hit by the machine, because that happens there too. Like, not a knock on DBAT or anything, but just saying, like, those are some of the things that you have to deal with too. Like, I can take one of my cages inside, or I can take one of my machines inside, or both of my machines inside, and we can have machines going inside. Like, if you're a youth coach, you necessarily are at the, you know, you're at the discretion of that facility that you're using. Like, do they even have machines? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I want to jump to, and this actually just popped into my head. So going back to kind of my hot take at the beginning about, you know, parents don't meet with the coach and say, hey, I've coached this number of years, but that experience has been in youth sports. There's different levels of play. Okay. So, and I'm going to wrap playing time kind of into this too, right? So I was at a previous school and I remember meeting with a parent and, you know, their kid wasn't playing as much. And we were kind of having that conversation about what do they need to get better at? Cause we don't, you know, we've always had a rule wherever I've been of we're not going to talk playing time, but we'll talk to you about things that they need to improve on. And they would say, well, they play on their AAU team and they win on their AAU team. And the coach says that he cannot understand like why he's not playing on this team. Now, you know, this particular school that I'm at, I mean, we're a state tournament team at 6A year in, year out. You know, we're competing for championships and those type of things. So we had some actually really good players that were on our bench that just couldn't break in. I mean, we had we're blessed to have a run of D1 talent kind of coming through at that time. And, you know, it's like, you know, my thoughts, again, going back to what coaches wish they could tell parents, at the end of the day, like they were playing some low-level tournaments. Okay, so, you know, there's the EYBL, right? So Nike has this league, EYBL, and if you're playing at that level and you're playing this national schedule, like you're a really good player, most likely, okay? And Adidas has one, you know, Under Armour has one, these different shoe companies, and and then there's independent groups, and there are some great independent travel ball teams that are just incredible that can beat some of those shoe sponsor teams. But there'd be like a group of guys, maybe 7 or 8 guys get together and they'd play in a random tournament, or maybe they go to Dallas or Kansas City or heck even Virginia Beach or wherever, and they play a tournament. But there's different levels of tournaments, and so maybe they're playing in a lower level, and also it's like at the end of the day, that AAU coach has 9 to 10 hand-picked kids that are all paying him. Like, what's he supposed to say? Yeah, hey, you're paying me, but I don't think your kid should be playing on their high school team. Like, that's just not that's just not going to happen. And so anyway, just going back to playing time and then just the levels of play. And so like maybe they're playing in tournaments and they're winning championships, but what level is that at? And then how is that going to translate into secondary sports?
That's a good point.
Let's jump into scheduling, and there's kind of pros and cons to both sides on this. So talk about the scheduling with youth sports versus secondary sports.
Youth sports, there's usually a league scheduler. Like if you're in a league during youth sports, like I know in EASI, the kind of league that we use for softball and stuff, there's a league scheduler. So as a coach, we could ask that league scheduler like, hey, we can't play on Tuesdays. We can play any other day except Tuesday. So they would work with us on not playing on Tuesdays, but we're at the mercy of them of like, oh, we're going to play on Thursday at 8 o'clock at night, and they're 5-year-olds.
Yep.
But that's, you got an amount of teams, you got to get a certain amount of games in, things like that. On the tournament, on the travel ball side, like we got to pick what tournaments we were in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, depending on your level of connection with the tournament director, you could be like, hey, I don't want to play early on Saturday, play us later. Like, in turn, we'll play early on Sunday, and there's a little bit of that goes on. But the scheduling was really somewhat easy in youth
it's probably
sports.
Usually on the weekends,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, if you're a parent, your Saturdays are used for youth sports and birthday parties, okay?
Yes.
Like, that's it. You no longer own your Saturdays once you become a parent. And so most of those, like our basketball league, we're going to play on Saturdays, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're playing in a tournament, like you said, it's now during the summer, you said it's Thursday through Sunday, but, during the year, I don't know, maybe you play some Friday stuff, but it's, maybe Saturday, Sunday games is what you're playing. Our youth football schedules on Saturdays and those type of things. Now with secondary sports, it's a little bit laid out like that for us,
Right.
We get to create our own schedules and talk to other schools about that. But for the most part, there's an understanding, okay, middle school basketball games are going to be on Monday, Thursday.
Yeah.
High school is going to be on Tuesday, Friday, right? To which, talking to a parent who has a middle school and a high school kid, that's 4 nights a week that they could be going to games, right? And the same thing for coaches if you're coaching both.
Yeah.
Football games are going to be on Fridays. Middle school for us is going to be on Mondays. Bigger schools sometimes do those on Thursdays or whatever. So, your games are most likely going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, right? Occasional Friday games, and then obviously you've got some tournaments Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That all works out. But I think the big difference is the school events that go with that.
Yeah.
Right. We as secondary coaches, we have to take into account, okay, they've got prom. We're not going to set a game on prom.
I
Don't
did that
shake your
this
head.
year.
Yeah.
I did that this year and last year, and I always have to cancel. Always.
Yeah. I told them, I was like, I do not have your back, all right, if you set a game on prom. Parent-teacher conferences, right? We've tried to work around a little bit. We offer 2 dates. We tell our coaches to try to only schedule them on 1 date. We have, mission trips. We have, just different nighttime activities. We have we're about to have our basketball parent meeting, and there's also a 5th grade musical that night.
Yeah.
Well, so now I have a 5th grader, you have a 5th grader, but we want to be available for that, but we also have to, if I didn't have a 5th grader, I still need to take that into account for my parents.
Yep.
So we're trying to time it to where it's different than that time. So we have to take those. Now, as youth sports, I mean, there's some of those things that you have to work around, but for the most part, Saturday's your game day. That's pretty much when it's going to be.
Yeah.
If you got OU or OSU tickets, you kind of have to make that decision on what that is. Okay. And then if not, just send them to me at no. But so that's some of the scheduling and taking those different events into consideration. Okay. Last point is parent involvement. Talk about what that looks like in each of those scenarios.
So parent involvement can be good and bad. Okay. I'm gonna focus on the good pieces first of youth sports. Like, hey, you're gonna bring your kids to games. Like, you're gonna be a part of the community. You're gonna help promote a good culture of youth sports. Of like, hey, I'm here to support my kid. I'm here to like, you know, be the best parent that I can in this time of my kid's life, right? You're also gonna have the parent involvement of like, hey, let's schedule a team get together at the end of the year. Let's schedule a team dinner, right? Which is like, hey, let's go to Chick-fil-A after the game today.
Right.
You know,
CC's,
you
pizza
know,
place, something.
main event.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of what the parent involvement looks like on the youth sports side, and I think that's really crucial. I know in our community, like we have our youth football league, and the parent involvement in that league is pretty outstanding. You know, with the productions that it takes to put on with cheer and youth cheer and the football games, and they all have these different times and all this stuff, PA announcing, running the scoreboard, all those
Working
things.
gate.
Yeah, because the school does not do any of that.
Right. They take that on themselves.
They take that on themselves. So the parent involvement in there, that's awesome. Then you have on the secondary side, the parent involvement, and our parent group for baseball, great, like outstanding, providing food, providing pretty much anything that I'm like, hey, can you guys help us with this? Like, yeah, sure, whatever you need. Coach, what do you want the boys to have today? Sack nasties. Like, don't be bringing no Jersey Mikes and all that stuff. Just get a loaf of white bread, slap some PB&J on it, stick it back in the sleeve, and throw it on the bus. We're ready to go. But no, like they do a great job as far as that goes. And I know on the baseball end, like our parents work the concession stand, they grill, they do our announcing, they run the scoreboard. So like those are all crucial pieces of the parent involvement that are great. Now on the flip side of that, you have parent involvement that isn't always great, right? So on the youth side, you may have parents that like to overstep. You always have that parent that is kind of in the stands, and I try not to do this a lot, but you have that parent that's in the stands. It's like, you gotta drive the ball. Like, you know, you got that parent that's like, the coach is trying to tell them one thing, but the kid is constantly looking in the stands, like going this way. And that, to me as a parent, but then also as a coach, kind of drives me crazy, because when they get to that secondary sport, and it's usually in middle school, like that's something that we address in our parent meeting. Mm-hmm. Like and we got to tackle it head on.
Yep.
Some parents may not like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really care, but that's how we're going to do it in the program. Like, I don't need him looking at you for adjustments in the box or adjustments on the mound, because at the end of the day, like, he's going to have to come off the field and he's going to have to talk to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're going to have to talk to him after that, but I feel like your role as a parent in that secondary slot and the youth slot is to be an encourager. Like, because they're going to get enough coaching and hard coaching from me at the secondary level that when they get home, they don't need to get another hard coaching from their parents. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of do that a little bit with my kids sometimes, but mine is more on the effort side. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm all for that. If you're not giving great effort, you're going to hear about it when you get home. Probably when you get in the car in the parking lot on the way home, you know. But that's another piece of that parent involvement for me that looks different in the youth area and the secondary area. And I know at some secondary schools it may look different. Like you may have parents still chirping from, you know, the peanut gallery out there, but at our school we don't necessarily have a ton of that I have noticed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, so I think both situations, both youth and secondary, take volunteers, right? But like at youth sporting events, you may be running the clock. You may be, like you said, PA announcing. You may be for basketball, keeping a book. You may be, doing those type of things. Different tournaments are set up different ways. And then for the most part, I'd say, I don't know these numbers, but 90% of youth coaches, so not high school travel ball and those type of things, but 90% of youth coaches are parents of those players.
Yeah.
Right. And so you already have this connection. Now that can also make it difficult, right? Because, okay, we've got a team of 10. All right, and let's talk about our situation now. RC's fifth grade daughter's a really good basketball player and plays a lot for us. Okay, gets talent from mama. Okay, not from RC. But if we were coaching together as parents, okay, and let's say we weren't secondary coaches, but we were coaching together as parents, and then now I'm, as the head coach playing my daughter and playing other girls more than that. What is that dynamic like now, right? I don't worry about that in my secondary position because right now I'm not coaching my son at the high school level. My assistant doesn't have a son at the high school level, and so that's not even an issue that I have to deal with. Now, maybe one day that is, but that can be an issue for youth sports is, okay, now we're giving of our time, we're not getting paid, we're volunteers in this position. Now, how do we work out the playing time? Now, again, I think we both agree, youth sports, you're trying to get all the kids in there and give some good playing time for them to be able to grow and develop. But when you get to the middle school and high school level, we still ask for volunteers, right, for our press boxes and scores tables, things like that. Now, we take care of gate.
Yeah.
We have an administrator that's there at games to be able to take care of issues, depending on the league. Like I've gone to, soccer games, and they've got high school kids reffing out there, and then sometimes the way parents are acting, I'm like, goodness gracious, what's happening right now? And so, it looks different as far as how you're staffing those events. But again, you're relying upon those volunteers, and then obviously there's the snacks and dinners. So one of the things I don't do a great job of at games is, I don't know if you're going to be a soccer parent, you've got to make the tunnel after games. Right, you got to. I mean, you're failing as a soccer parent.
It's the worst thing ever.
Hey, hot take right here. Okay, okay. Let me say I don't do the tunnel. All right, but hey, I'm glad the parents that do. All right, I'm thankful for those parents. Okay?
I'm not going over there.
I'm usually like trying to round up all my other kids and all that stuff. But so there's kind of that side of it, kind of the celebration in youth sports, and then of course you get the snacks, and that's what the kids are really there for, right?
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Goldfish and juice boxes.
Yes. And then for us, it's like, please eat that snack and drink that in front of our other kids
that
right?
didn't get anything.
So that's part of it. And again, that looks different. And then also transportation. There's more on parents in a youth league setting to get their kids to the games. As a coach, for the most part, I'm just showing up.
Right.
I'm bringing my kid to the game or my kid to practice, and I don't have to worry about that. As a secondary coach, for the most part, you're having to provide transportation to those games. I mean, it's a little bit different at our middle school level, and I won't get into all those details, but sometimes parents will take them to the games because that's the easiest there. But for the most part, that transportation looks differently. And let me kind of finish with this. Coaching, that may have been a hot take, what I said at the beginning. Don't go in there to a school coach and say, I've coached this number of years, but it's been in youth sports. In a lot of ways, that's more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I had coached, by the time I started coaching my kids, I had coached like 10 years at the secondary level, and it has been much harder to run a practice for second grade girls than ever running a practice for middle school or high school age boys.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, I mean, even with the 28 that we have in middle school, I can be like, hey, this drill, this is what we're doing. And they're going to get there and they're going to do a pretty good job. If I said that with 10 girls in second grade, I mean, it's, they're all over the place, and okay, come stand right here, just to set up the drill takes a ton of time.
Yeah.
And then, someone's going to fall down, someone's going to get hurt, they're going to have to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. I mean, there's those type of things that, like, my heart goes out to all of us who coach youth sports to be able to do those things. And so I'm not saying that secondary sports are harder, more difficult. It's just different. It's hard to compare the two and say, well, because I've done one, I can do the other. It is, I mean, even within basketball, it is a completely different skill set that it takes to be able to manage, coach, be loving towards youth kids versus high school kids. I do think we hit on another episode of kind of what should expectations be both on the sidelines for coaches
Yeah.
and in the stands for parents in youth league and really just across the board. And the other thing is we want to invite directors of different youth leagues. We had one we talked to the other day on social media to get their perspective and to also give just education on what it looks like, from their role and how they're seeing the youth sports. And, youth sports has just grown so much since, when I was little, I'd play in a random tournament here and there, but we were just playing at the park, playing in the front yard and those type of things. And now it's completely different. And so we want to continue to educate people on that. So any final thoughts on this topic in general?
Yeah, I love youth sports. I think youth sports are vital to working the chain of getting those kids prepared for secondary sports. And I think that without youth sports, we would be set back when they get to middle school.
Absolutely.
So I encourage parents that coach youth sports to continue to coach. Get out there and also better yourself with coaches clinics, because that's what secondary coaches do. We go to coaches clinics, we watch coaches clinics. There's so much free information out there that you could grab if you're new to youth sports or you're trying to be better at what you're doing in youth sports. There's a lot of different resources for you out there. But I love youth sports. I encourage the people that coach youth sports. I encourage Coach Weaver to keep grinding with those.
If I can get my clipboard. All right, if I can just get my clipboard.
Hey, I got one. I ordered one at Amazon. You saw a package. But I encourage you guys to keep going and keep pushing forward and understanding and seeing the different perspectives of both sides. And I'm hoping that we're opening eyes and kind of helping educate parents, coaches, and players on both sides of youth sports and secondary sports.
Yeah, it's really needed. And again, we kind of look at sports as not just for the success, but for the development of character.
Yeah.
Right. And again, our goal at OCS specifically is educating our kids to teach the whole child to glorify God. Right. And so we want to see athletics as that vehicle, not as the end all be all with the success that they may have. But both are needed. If you come into our basketball program as a 6th or 7th grader and you haven't played much basketball, you haven't been a part of tournaments and youth sports teams and stuff like that, you are behind, definitely. Yes, and so, it is a huge help to those secondary programs. You can definitely, if you look at the teams that are successful at the high school level and you track their players back, now, again, I also want to give the caveat of we don't want that to become an idol. That doesn't, we don't base our lives just around that sport, that athletics, and all those things. So I think there's a delicate balance there that maybe we can get to on another episode. So
for sure.
Thank you again for joining us. Again, like and subscribe. We've got a lot of people viewing and everything, but please like this and subscribe. And again, if you have any ideas or comments about and pushback and challenges to some of the comments that today, please either send them to theathleticsoffice@gmail.com or you can leave them in the comments below. But thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.